record? Oh. Yeah, can everyone hear me just fine? Da, da, da. All right. So my name is Meku. Um, I've been doing 3D for about 13 years now. Uh, I started off using Blender, self-taught, and I went and about 5 years in, I wanted to go to college for it, so I went to Full Sail University for 3D animation, and I learned a bunch of stuff there. But they kind of like taught me more like a bunch of industrial tools and stuff, and it was kind of odd. But I don't think I ever actually got to like weight painting stuff. So um, what I'm gonna go through here is actually like what tools could help you to prevent certain things from happening while weight painting. Because I noticed some things on like IVCS or just in general, like a bunch of mods would have various weight painting problems that are things that are kind of easy to fix, but maybe some people don't know how to identify it or have a hard time locating certain parts of it. Of like certain problems. So if I move this finger, we can't see any problem, and this is just a the IVCS hand. The model itself isn't changed on anything, but I did update it so that it works with my bone system. So just ignore like if I control things, things move a certain way. It's whatever. So this is just how I control things directly inside Blender. It has no significant difference than how people move things in game because I'm not changing the weights. Anyways, so with that being said, bone weights move things when you move a bone, right? And for any model, you need a vertex group um, on your mesh. So if I go to vertex groups, you need a vertex group so that it moves with the extra bones that you add or any other sort of thing. So if I select this and I move, we can actually see like on this little area of the model that you can kind of see the vertex moving a little bit on a couple different spots. And if we go to this finger and we move it too, it's less clear when I'm like kind of dragging it around or maybe in game with the animations on. But if I go to like position a finger, sometimes we'll get some weird deformations, and maybe you just want better controls for, or not better controls, but better movement on your model when you are posing it or letting bones deform it, right? So if I go into weight paint mode, this is Blender's weight paint mode. I can go down to this sample vertex group tool, and if I hold down click and I click on it, I can select between these ones. I believe at first it's no, at default it's set to sample weight, and this is kind of neat because it will give you like the total weight value for like a section that you're clicking on. Um, so if I wanted to have a ring on this hand, it's like right here you could probably assign it to one of the bones that are really close to that ring. Let me just whatever. It's gonna be weird. Cool. Thanks. Um, So if I go to any of these, things that appear red are things that are really hot and have more influence over the rest of the model. And as you get to things that are more blue, then it's going to move less than the part that's hot. And that depends on the bone that you have selected. And to make this clearer, maybe I should just select this and turn off the shapes, the fancy shapes, and hide these ones. These ones are my extra bones. Okay, so these are the bones that people are probably used to, just with some colors on it. And I'm unsure why it won't let me select out of here because it's being weird. But anyways, uh, This weight paint sample tool I tend to use a lot to try and identify why like some model is moving in a way that I didn't intend it to. Like, see, I'm selecting this part of this model, and I'm obviously not selecting this part, and it's going, this area on the model has some deformation for that bone. So actually, if it lets me, can I go to weight paint mode now? I mean, it goes into, cool. So now I can just select my bones, and that was in object mode. I held down shift, I selected my bone system, and then I shift selected the mesh that I want to mess with, and it lets me go into an edit mode, kind of like, or a weight paint mode that lets me select my bones, right? So while I was clicking on this part, it selected a bone that was on the other side, and I would be like, okay, I don't want that to happen. So one of the things that I could do to fix that is while I'm selecting like this, it's automatically selecting my vertex group. And something that I don't see anybody really realizing is if you go into edit mode, if you hit tab, you can hit Z, or you can click up here in the shading options and change it to wireframe. You can actually select this finger and go, okay, well, I still have that that vertex group selected. So it's still moving as if it was moving from that bone on this finger, right? So I could hit remove, and these controls down here only show up when you're in um edit mode on a model. So now if I click through here, it does not have all these controls. See, now it says that I have something over there, and I could just hit here and hit remove and go okay. So this thing only has stuff from here. So now I can click over here, and this is just some quick cleaning of different sections of models. Maybe I'll move this, and if I look in like a wireframe kind of mode or whatever, I don't see it moving anything else. If I select this one, I know that it's going to move this other finger a little bit. And I could actually like go through all of these and go, well, that shouldn't have, this finger shouldn't have weights for that group. So I hit that, and then now it's not going to move with the middle finger, and now it has weight for that one. So there we go. So what I'm just doing is I'm just cleaning off the vertex groups and using this sample vertex group tool. It's really like, these things aren't kind of like a crazy concept. It's just making sure that you're finding out where your extra bones are, or where your extra weights are coming from, and what different bones are manipulating different things. I've seen certain things that one of my friends was having problem with, like a wrist, and like this section of the wrist was moving downwards. Here we go here. This section of the wrist was like moving downwards when he would move a bone from here. But yeah, this is being recorded, so don't worry if you guys miss anything. And you guys can stop me and ask me any question you want about any of this, and I'll try my best to answer. But for the sake of everybody in the class, try and maybe write down your questions, and then kind of towards the end of me demonstrating all the different tools, I'll pop open like Q&A session or something. It'll be great. But yeah, so this section, my friend was moving that section of the model, and this was like for VR chat or something. And they said that whenever they moved the model, their wrist would come down, and it would be like a huge chunk of just like right there, and they wouldn't know why. And I was like, well, did you check the weights? There has to be another bone going there. And he goes, no, it's a Blender bug. And I was like, okay, well, send me the file, I'll check it out. So I looked at it, and it had weights for the hips. I don't know how. I don't know how. It had weights for the hips. It had weights for I think a thumb bone and maybe like an index bone. When I cleared all of those off, it worked just fine. Or it was stuck and it needed weights to be added on there from one of the surrounding bones. So just being able to go to your model, knowing that you have all these different tools down here, helps a lot when you're trying to identify any problems. especially just this one. All right. And to get back to what I was saying earlier about a ring, if you wanted to just to add a simple ring onto here, uh, yeah, you could do transfer weights, which works for a lot of general bones. But if you want to transfer, or if you want to add like a ring or something on here, in my opinion, the easiest thing you can do is just pick a spot that you want your ring to get added to, and then click on this and go to sample weight. And then now if I click, anywhere around here, it's going to update or it's going to tell me how much weight it has on this bone. And I'll go, okay, so this has 0.96 weight. And then I could go and I can add in a ring, give it the name of this vertex group, right? And then change this to 0.896. And then I could assign it to the full ring, and then it's going to move with that bone. But it'll move 0.96 with just that bone, and I also need it to move with whatever other bones are here that are affecting this. So I'll go like this. This is 0.86. Maybe I would want it to move with that. I don't want it to move with that. And then maybe right here. So this is, no, let's change it to, yeah, oh, okay. So maybe 0.8 or 0. Whatever on that too. So you could either make it like move perfectly with that, or you could just add a couple, just a little bit of the weight from the first bone, and then you should be fine to just add like a little thing like that, like any sort of ring. Right. So that is me explaining how this tool is used. It's really like there's no other options for this. If I go here, there's like symmetry options and stuff. I would also say to keep in mind that when you're going through some of these tools, there's different options for things that you can get into, like front face only that never ever works. So just be aware of that. The symmetry option, I've had really bad luck with anything that involves symmetry with vertex groups, so I wouldn't suggest using that, but maybe you're lucky and get away with using that. Um, some of these other things are kind of neat. I just never mess with these tools, but I often see that maybe sometime you'll need to go in here to mess with like the stroke settings or whatnot. Yeah, symmetry in Blender is kind of weird. There's one instance where symmetry is great on Blender, right? So this one instance is when, let's say we have a model, right? And we cut one part of the model off, and we want that model to have the same thing on the other side done to it. So using a mirror modifier is perfectly fine. It's great. And another benefit of using a mirror modifier is if you have vertex groups and you have like, let's pretend as if this is supposed to be a couple hands, right? So we do that, finger R. So if you have both of these vertex groups set up and they specifically have left or right on the end of it, when you go and you paint your vertex groups to either side, if you skin your thing to a model, or you put it on a bone system. So if you're working with a final character and you had your hands or whatever, and you wanted it to be the same on the other side, if you're using a mirror modifier, it would automatically apply that those weights to the other side. But this is assuming you don't have like asymmetric model for some reason. So I guess for some clothing that might be kind of bad. But for like if you're trying to do any sort of a symmetrical designs on anything or whatever, this would be the one way that I recommend doing it for vertex groups. Like sending over your vertex groups. So you need to have mirror modifier first and then your other thing. And I don't know if okay, so everything came back. Cool, nice. Okay, so what are some of the other tools? Well, this. See, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to click on my model, but it's not letting me because I'm in pose mode. But that is technically lock object modes, and this is off for me, and it's not still not letting me. So Blender could be kind of funky sometimes. So what? Let's go to weight paint mode still. So this average thing, I'm gonna be honest, never used it before. I'd assume it does what it says. Maybe, but I never used it before. So that's the one that I've never used. I've used smear a lot, which just kind of like, like takes your vertex groups wherever you click and you move it along. And that brings me to a different thing. Let me go here. So the way that vertex groups work is that, or vertex groups and sculpting in Blender, you have to be pointing at like an actual vertex for it to matter. So you're like, I could have the size of my brush be really small or really big, and it's not really going to matter. And all that I'm doing to change the size is hitting F and then clicking. It's changing the size. Or you could do like the old Photoshop way where you hit brackets like up and down, close and open or whatever. Or you can change the thing up here. But for you to move these vertex groups, you actually need to be hitting like an actual vertex. So if you're not and you don't know where they are, you can go to viewport display with an object selected. So you need to have the object properties, and you can click on wireframe, and that shows things like this, at least in your viewport. Allows user to yeah. Okay, so this is smear is kind of useful, but set to 1 is kind of like overkill. Like maybe something lower would be nice to like try and fix some sort of deform problems that you may or may not be having. And one of the things that I use a lot is this gradient tool, along with the masking options up here when you're in weight paint mode. So this gradient tool could be set to either a linear or a radial gradient, and this will just send weight through your entire model. So if I change this to 1 and I go like this, it's just sending it through the entire model, nice and clean. But maybe that's like overkill, and maybe you just want like just a little bit selected. And did I just break something on the top? Where's my strength control? Hello? Wow, cool. Actually, I just broke Blender. Check that out. Oh, there it goes. Now it's back. Neat. Huh. I think it's because I controlled Z? Maybe? Maybe it didn't like that. So there, now you got more control of these. Okay, cool. Right. So if I wanted to only add weights to like one section of my model, I can go into edit mode, and if I hit C, like circle, it'll bring up circle select, and you could use all these things on the side. You can change that to that. But I don't use this. I've actually like I've been using Blender for so long, all these buttons on the side are very, very, very new to me. And I've never actually clicked on any of them because every single one of them are things that I have hard coded in my brain. So like as hotkeys. Sorry if I don't explain a hotkey. I could turn on screencast keys if anybody prefers me having there for you being able to see shortcuts that I'm using. Yes, please. All right. We got that. So now it'll show little things on the side. And I'm also using a Razer Naga mouse, and it just makes it so that I could have a number pad on my thumb so that I don't actually have to take my hand off my mouse while I'm using Blender. And it's really just a Blender specific thing in a really, really, really personal preference. So, anyways, if I select like this, just this finger, I can go from edit mode to weight paint mode, and you can see that nothing really changed. But then if I select paint mask, then now I'm only going to select just that, and that mirrors my selection in edit mode. And I could also, if I hover my mouse over a section of the model, I could also select individual things. I can hold down Shift and select individual things. I think you can hold down Control. No, you can't. So in edit mode, if I were to select this face and I Control select that face, then it does shortest path to that location. So it's kind of neat for when you're trying to select certain things. But anyways, we go like this, back to weight paint mode. And one other way that you can select things is by hitting L. So this will select anything that's linked. Right now, the hands on this model are not connected because that's how usually it is in game, I guess, right? Oops, don't render, please. Okay, cool. And if you hold down Shift L, you can deselect certain things. So it's kind of neat for you to understand that there's all these different selection types that you can do straight in weight paint mode. So you're only painting on the parts that you want. Linked equivalents to everything on the same UV island. No. Yes. Right. So I believe if I hit L, I could hit select link, move. Thanks. And here it'll go up to the seam. So it says UVs, but it also says seams. So a UV island in Blender is just it's when you unwrap a model, it'll have all these UVs, and actually you can display them directly onto your model if whoa, that's a vagina. If you go to UVs and you have all your stuff selected, you can go to seams from islands, and that will display the like a red line across your model. And this whole section is one seam. So if I select it, or this whole section is one UV island, so it is correct what he asked. He asked if linked equals everything on the same UV island. But that's technically wrong. But technically right, I guess. So inside of Blender, we have object mode and edit mode, right? Well, in object mode, all of these, everything that I have selected right here is technically one object, right? But then if I go into edit mode, this is a different thing. I could hold down, whatever, and I could select different parts. But technically these are considered mesh islands. And like even if they're like not connected like this is like a separate mesh island than that. But that's what I was always told, was that these are mesh islands. But that just selects anything that's linked to what you're selecting. And if you're in face selection mode, you could just, as long as you're hovering over the model, you could select things. If you're in vertex selection mode, you have to be over vertex, because if I try to do it over here, it's still going to do it because it hates me. Wow. Okay, cool. So sometimes it doesn't work. But that's cool. It's just selecting everything that's linked. And like if I grab this and this and I hit merge and I hit merge at distance, it's not going to work because it thinks that these are two different models. Nope, because these are not overlapping. So I'm going to do merge at center. I do not recommend doing this if you are trying to mod your character, because then you will have maybe two hands or two sections of arm showing up on your model. But this is it, like in game. But this is just me trying to demonstrate the link. So now if I link or hit select link, it selects all the parts. And if I ever wanted to delink it, I guess, I could select that and hit Y, and Y is just a thing to rip it off, I guess. If I subdivide this real quick and I hit Y, it doesn't have like a special operation that shows up at the bottom of my screen, so I don't know what that's generally called. But yeah, we go back into here, go to weight pane a little bit more. I've actually not used vertex selection mode. I think it's the same. Don't know. But let's move back towards like the tools. There is a draw tool for you to paint specific weights directly onto a model. And it's kind of good, but for me, if there's like any models that have like even a part that's slightly occluded, like now I can't see the section of the palm or whatever, and I painted across it, then there would be like kind of like a like weird thumb line or whatever across the model, and you don't want that. You just want to. So the draw thing works on your screen space. So anything that you can see on your screen is going to get painted. Anything you can't is whatever. And maybe that works for some people. But I literally would rather just use vertex, not vertex, the gradient tool. So if I change this to 1, I go over here and I can add some weights, and then I could actually change this back down so that I'm removing weights from that section. And even though that it says that all these weights are gone, you could still go here and go to sample vertex group and see that I still have weight from this bottom finger up there. So what we do is we go into edit mode, select that, and then you hit remove. And then now it's all clean again. So it's really nice being able just to do that bit of a switch. And gradient works through models, so it's not based on your screen space. But it is going to essentially start, like, if I have it set to radial, it'll start from whatever point I click on my screen, and it's going to move out like a radial gradient in like Photoshop or something. Or if I do linear, it's going to go everything from over here. Like if I clicked and dragged from this point onward, right? So I guess you can't see on the model. Let's redo that. So if I clicked from here onward, since I have 0 weights, it's not going to do anything. But if I click there, you can see that any point from where I clicked backwards is going to get full weights. So linear is a little bit tricky. Radial is a little bit easier for people to kind of use. Like you just click and drag, and then there you go. You have all your weights for different sections. And all these things could be really, really, really helpful if you're doing clothing, if you're doing anything with multiple sections, if you're doing anything that has like I know on chest pieces, I don't have a chest here. There might be one inside the stuff, maybe, but that would probably have boobs. I don't know. I'm just trying to focus on hands right now. But essentially, this tool goes widely unused in like every time that I've seen anything. They just never mention that this tool exists, or that you can select parts of your model in object mode or edit mode and change the actual vertex weight on or fund your vertex groups directly. Like no one ever mentions any of that. And I just wanted, you guys to know about it. Draw sucks. Blur's kind of nice. Blur's blurring. It just blurs the weights with stuff that's next to it. There's also a lot of stuff inside here. Automatically assigning your bone weights is kind of it's kind of nice if you want like a just to get a quick and dirty example of like how your bone placement is kind of, but it's not going to be perfect. Um, I don't really understand bone envelopes too well. So using the distance between the vertex of the bone. Sure. Normalize, I believe somebody in a previous class mentioned that normalize will take multiple vertex groups that are affecting one single vertex and make it so that the highest ones are now one. Um, which is really helpful so you don't get things moving too much, I guess. The mirror invert, I never really found a use for me using that. Clean, I'm not really too sure. I've used smooth a lot. Smooth is pretty great. Transfer weights. Also, let me show this real quick. So if I selected anything, oh, did I break this finger? No. Cool. Right. So if I selected this and I wanted to smooth the vertex group, right? So I hit smooth, it kind of did like a blur of everything from here to the next vertex over. And we can kind of see what's going on here if screencast keys would let me. But you can actually change the thing to which vertex groups it's actually doing that for. So if you needed to smooth out your weights for all groups, you can go there to all groups and then you can fix that, or you can change the iterations or strength and whatever. A lot of things inside Blender when you do anything like grabbing something or I don't know, scaling, rotating anything, it will show a box down here so you can manually input the thing. But as soon as you do any other action, that box will go away. So just keep that in mind. So like now if I like clicked on something else, it goes away. Poof. Um, I guess a lot of people in the Final Fantasy or modding community or really anything like using transfer weights. I could actually explain kind of what that does. So maybe I'll go to object mode. I could just click here, add in plane. So this plane is really close to my mesh, and maybe I wanted to transfer weights from my plane onto my my finger. So when you do transfer weights, it goes, okay, so maybe let's pretend that this vertex had a bunch of different vertex groups here and a bunch of different vertex weights. Well, what Blender is doing is it's going, okay, if you have or transfer weight set up as like the default transfer, it's like, where's it? It's kind of set up like this by default, right? And then you pick a source, and in this case, my source would be here. But what you're doing is if you put this modifier on this, and you wanted this finger to have weights from this, then it would be like this instead. So you have transferring vertex groups, and then you want it from that plane. So you could do replace, you can do add, mix, whatever. But it's just mixing the actual number value from these two things. But what Blender is doing when you're actually transferring the weights over is it's going, okay, so these verts are kind of close to that area. So it's going to send out a ray, and it's going, okay, so this ray goes from here and it carries the vertex group data. So like some weird number value that you assign to that thing. And then it's going, okay, so it hits kind of around here. So maybe all of these things, this area, my thing's going crazy over here, are going to get different values of that vertex group. And it's going to try and blend it in with any of the other incoming rays from any other section of the model. Okay. So it's just going to go evenly across the whole thing for every single vertex that has a vertex group. and that works. But if you had like, say, if this was a glove and you had like a little special feather or something on the top of your glove, and you were transferring the weights from this thing, it's gonna hit here and there, and it's gonna like go, okay, well this hits something, and it's gonna subtract like the value of your vertex groups from this, from like the intersection, and it's going to give you like a weird lower value or maybe even a higher value sometimes. Um, that's kind of bad, and that's like it's great. Transfer rates is great to get things, but then when you have anything that's overlapping, you end up having like a hard time. So the tools that I'm explaining here help a lot with being able to tell how much weight is on a certain area. So if I have like fancy feather thing here, I can totally check out and go, okay, so that's the name of the vertex group. And I can come here to look at the name or change the name to whatever I want. I could hit the other one and see that it's 0.46 weight. And then now I could apply, I could, if I had the fancy feather thing here, I could just go into edit mode and apply. So I don't know. That's it for that. These vertex groups are set up based on the name of the bone. If you were ever wondering what the name of a single bone is, you could actually go into your armature display settings and change name to be on. So you can see the name for all your bones. And then you can tell like really which parts are affecting which, if there's things that are going kind of like weird. Right. Uh, and if your model is ever not moving and you have your vertex groups, you have weight on something, you have the bones there with the name on it, then it's probably because you do not have one of these. So this is a armature modifier, and even if you have one of these, you probably don't have the armature selected. So just make sure that all those things are set up. So that's the armature thing. Usually if you import something from Final Fantasy, it'll say newt or n root rather. Sorry, maybe. Yeah, I think it's just one of those. And that's kind of all that I can think of weight painting. That's like all of it. I know that there's a couple different add-ons that will change your experience with automatic weights. One of them is shoot. One of them is a voxel diffusion based thing, and it's really fancy, but it makes your weights a little bit more clean, and it's really only helpful for things that are like well, I don't know, I would have to find it. But if anybody wants to ask any questions right now, that would be great, and then I could try and find this add-on if you guys want. Automatic. Yeah, voxel heat scanning. So how would I best show this? Right. So this is going to show my name, but I don't care. I think everybody that's like a client of mine or whatever knows my name, so whatever. But this is Blender Market. This is the add-on that I just mentioned. It's extremely helpful for dealing with weights in Blender. I've used it a couple times, and this is just taking automatic weight like painting onto like a model or whatever, and it's just making it like a little bit easier to do. And I don't know why they go with the old UI for some of this stuff, but like right here, if you see this person's shirt is kind of like off to the side, it's based off of Blender's default automatic skin weighting. And then this is kind of what this add-on will do, is it just makes it like a lot better. It's just a simple default thing. And the voxel resolution is really specific. I could actually, like, I know enough that I could demonstrate it, like what it means. Voxels in 3D space are pretty simple. So if I have a cube and I hit subdivide a couple times, each one of these squares going all the way through the model is considered a individual voxel. So if this add-on is working the way that I think it is, this is a really low level voxel space. And if you go, okay, well, there's a model in that section, it's selecting all the way through. And actually, this is a really horrible demonstration because it would have lines going all the way through. But maybe I could get away with using a lattice, actually. So lattice would demonstrate this a little more without me actually using what lattice is used for. So we have all these little lines going all the way through a model, and it knows that inside there is a mesh, and inside one of these cubes, it needs to calculate where a thing is. So if all of these numbers are something crazy, the smaller these cubes get, the more voxel space is going to be distributed across your thing for it to calculate the fancy weights, right? But you see, these are still rather big. So like if the voxel thing was like this, it would be great because it's calculating all of these voxels and giving it vertex weights based on how close it is to the model. And that's cool. But every time that you do that, it takes more computing power from your CPU in order to do that. So it gets a little bit slower each time. But this add-on is actually really, really, really fast when I used it. I was really surprised. But any other sort of using voxels in Blender tends to be super, super, super slow. So yeah, look at that. They did a heat map, like the basic Blender thing on this side, and it left her straps, I guess, right there. Kind of like not there, but then they did a voxel grid one, and that's what this is showing. Like it just has like a grid displayed over the model, and then goes, okay, if it has a part of the model in there, then we'll put weights on that, or we'll calculate that for the weights. And there's a bunch of tutorials on this. I don't know. This add-on's really cool. Here, I'm going to drop it into the chat. And for the video, when I upload it, I will include the link to this add-on in the description. And yeah, I already bought this. It's a $30 add-on. I don't think I paid $30 for it when I got it. I don't know. But, you know, these guys are cool. Really great. Anyways, that's all that I can think of. I hope this thing was really helpful for you guys when you guys are thinking about bone weights inside Blender. And now you guys are equipped with amazing little tools here to help you not have your fingers be deformed from other fingers, or from your arm being controlled by your hip bone for some weird reason. And this is a great way for you to identify those problems. Click vertex group. Click on this. All right. There's always new things to learn. All right. Do any of you guys have any questions before I stop recording? Maybe. Welcome. I'm trying to think of something I'm sure I had before the class, but I'm drawing a blank. Well, it was kind of a lot of information, and I think I went well over the amount of stuff that I thought I was going to go over, honestly. And I kind of wanted to go for like maybe 20 to 30 minutes, but it's been 40 minutes, and I'm like, what? But it's okay. Really, I kind of sort of get like this whenever anybody asks me anything about Blender. So if anybody ever has any questions about anything in Blender, I could totally help you out, and I will provide videos and stuff. When I get questions and DMs, I often will send them a recording of like just a quick recording of where something is located or whatever. So if anybody needs help with whatever, feel free to hop in my DMs and ask me whatever. And for the people on YouTube, you guys can not DM me. Ha ha ha. No, I'm kidding. You guys can DM me too. I'll leave my Discord thing in the description. All right. I think that's it. Thank you all for coming. You guys are awesome. Have a good day. And I am going to close this and die.